we have to get justice, because that's the key to ending child sex trafficking in India. Because with 1 billion people and with red light areas in many, many cities and towns, and many of them, it's my view that you simply can't rescue enough of them. That simply, if you just rescue them and then you're done, even if those particular girls never go back, there's simply too many to replace them. They will simply go to other places or back to the same villages and get a new girl. There's a constant pipeline and a market for traffickers to bring girls and sell them for large amounts of money to brothel keepers, who then can make money off of those girls day after day. You simply can't rescue your way out of this problem. The only way that you get an end to this problem is, as I said in the beginning, when the systems themselves change, right? The only difference between a country like the United States or Portugal or Brazil or India in the levels of trafficking is the enforcement of the laws. And when there's a stronger enforcement of the law, it directly correlates to reduced numbers of girls being exploited. I'm not saying that you'll ever eradicate it or get rid of it, but you can reduce it if the system starts working. I think the first conviction was in Pune, where we had set up an office where Lee and I lived. That was where one of our main hubs of field work was going in and out of. Of course, Pune had a large red light area itself, very large, and they were many girls from West Bengal trafficked into that Pune red light area. And as I said, it's at quickest, it's a 28-hour train. There's much slower trains, but the fastest one is 28 hours. So that takes quite some time to travel. And in this first case, this first conviction, was a girl named Ambia, who they had sought to find back in her village. She did have a good family, and she was returned to her family in West Bengal. And so once it was time to bring her, they're trying to make contact with her. It was trouble finding her, trouble getting her cooperation to come. And so ultimately what happened, and this only happened once for me that I remember, I ended up traveling with 2 police officers from Pune on the train to West Bengal, and we spent 3 days searching for this girl. We knew where our village was, and so we stayed in Calcutta, and then we traveled each day out to the village. We met with the local police, we met with the local village panchayat, the leader of the village, but for 2 days we never set eyes on the girl. And on the 3rd day, I remember I ended up thinking of anything to do to try to accomplish this mission, and went to a local, like a superintendent of police's, I think it was his house, and I knocked on the door and nobody comes to the door. And at this point, we've been there for 3 days and we're trying to get this girl. We haven't set eyes on her. And at that point, vividly remember, I left that location, walked out to the road and called this police officer and said, well, this is where I'm sitting on the side of the road. When y'all come back, because they had gone ahead to the local police for the 3rd day in a row to try again. I sat there defeated. We're not going to get this girl, and our train is this evening, and this is our 3rd and last day, and they'll come pick me up and we'll go to the train station and we'll go home. After an hour or so of sitting there, they called me and they said, we have the girl with us and her relative, and we're coming to pick you up. And they did. And we went to the train station, and we took the long journey back. This girl and her family and these 2 police officers and me on this train back to Pune. And we had a couple days, I don't remember how long, before she was to testify. And so she spent some time with us, cared for her, talked to her, counseled her, learned about her a little bit more, because she had gone home to her family for quite some time. And then she testifies in the court, and I was in the court that day. And actually, this is the courtroom across the hallway from the story I was telling about the other 2 girls earlier. She testified again in front of a senior, older judge, and her brothel keeper was a woman from Nepal, and she testified truthfully. And it struck me that when she was doing it, that she was extremely vulnerable, and she was extremely scared, because here she's come again out of her village, out of her safe space, to a place where she doesn't know the language, to a place that the only thing she knew about it is the horrible things that happened to her there. and she's returned with two police officers and this foreigner back to Pune. And now here she is standing in front of a court with people all around, people listening to her story. And there she is boldly telling the truth. And she did. And the judge understood that she was telling the truth. And that woman was ultimately convicted several months later.
We rescued a young girl, a minor, in Bangalore. It was my first rescue. I was so full of enthusiasm. During the rescue, right after the rescue, when we brought the girl back with us, I remember holding her close to me and I was telling her it's okay, because she was crying a lot and she was so jilted by everything that was happening. During that time, she was she was so confused. But eventually, as we kept talking to her and as we kept relating with her, and also the counseling sessions post that, she started encouraging the girls around her to hope that, you know, they're gonna go back home. There's gonna be good things that happen to them, and she wanted to eventually become a police officer. And I am hoping that she's actually achieving that goal right now, because that was amazing. The first one, she immediately, you know, after a couple of counseling sessions, she said, I want to become a police officer. And I totally understand why, because it was the police along with us, although we were in the side, uh, that actually helped her get out of the problem that she was in, and the bondage she was in. So I'm so happy that she had so much hope in her heart to think of something like this and pursue something like that. So yeah. I think in my experience, I've seen a lot of failure, but I've also seen a lot of change happening. And I realized that even the smallest change is actually quite large, because the consequences of that small change becomes a huge snowball. Eventually snowballs into something really huge. And I I've noticed to just wait and give things time, as opposed to rushing into things and be a little forceful. So I've found that it works better in this sort of scenario. And yeah, patience is really key here, and a lot of prayer, of course. But yeah, patience.
You simply always hope that something's going to change. You hope that you're going to get the girl out again. Um, with Nagpur, it was a small condensed red light area, but with huge numbers of minor girls standing openly on the road when we started. Dozens of them just standing there, and young girls. You know, Pune, if the average age, you know, was 15 to 17, in Nagpur it was like 12 to 14. I mean, small young girls standing openly on the road, and you can't ignore that once you see the footage, once you see the video. You can't stop, and you hope that you'll be able to rescue them. And with Nagpur, we had many struggles with the overall system that was allowing this to happen in the first place. Um, and so that system was returning the girls to the red light area. And so we many of these girls we met, we talked to them in the shelter home, and then the footage would come in, and our social workers would look at the investigators' footage and see, I know that girl, and I know that girl, and I know that girl. And in fact, it was very interesting, because we rescued a girl in Nagpur, and then we started doing and that's in Maharashtra, like I said, and then we started doing investigations in Allahabad in Uttar Pradesh, 1,000 miles away, in a different state. And we saw footage, and our investigator said, I know that girl. I know that girl. We rescued her in Nagpur, and here she is in Allahabad. So India is this country of a billion people. And yet our investigators know girls, know their faces, know their stories so well that even 1,000 miles away, we remember them. And that girl was rescued in Allahabad. Back to Nagpur, we rescued several girls multiple times. Once you know a girl, once you know her story, once you know her face, you don't forget it. You can't leave her there. We continue to try to rescue those girls and every other girl. Um, it's not a situation where you can just simply close a file and say you're done and walk away. These are people's lives. These are relationships that have been built, and you simply have to keep going.